them I invited my new member on tonight.
Hey,
She's might be a little late.
hi everybody. We're just kind of falling into the room here. Welcome, welcome. My name is Scott McCrae, and I am doing the presentation tonight. As you may have heard, we are talking a little bit about the protein supplement industry, how it can be not what you think when you're looking on the shelf for a specific product. I put together a few slides. Let me get those up and running. All right. Interesting title. So my question to you is, when you're walking down the aisle, and by the way, we have people who are on this call who are clients and consumers. We have people who are also Shaklee ambassadors. So we have a host of people on here who understand this issue from a different light. But I think in light of the information that I've received recently, I decided this was a very pressing issue that really needed to be discussed. So welcome. When you're going down the aisle looking for a protein supplement, and you're looking at two canisters that both have the flashy label or packets or whatever it is you're looking at. And they're side by side, you're comparing labels, and it looks like pretty much the same stuff on the labels. One's $1 cheaper than the other. Most people are going to buy the cheaper product. So we're going to get into why you might want to have a second thought about what you're buying out of any particular store for your protein supplements based on the information that we're going to share tonight. So this issue about protein quality and contamination in the supply chain for raw materials for protein supplement products has been an issue for a long time. I heard about a Consumer Reports issue that came out with a few very popular protein drinks that were tested and contained cadmium, lead, mercury, and a few other contaminants as well. Very popular protein drinks. And that was several years ago. So when this popped up again, I was not actually really surprised, but I must say I was blown away at the intensity of the problem and how blatant it is right now. So let's talk about this Clean Label Project. Clean Label Project is a nonprofit organization that funds studies to kind of bring the dirt to the surface for everyone to see and demand better accountability and cleaner products in the supply food chain here in the United States. I think their insights from this report will shock you. Now, knowing that the protein market here in the United States is $1 billion market, and it's driven by people who are health conscious, people who are dealing with weight management goals, the fitness industry, all these things are driving this market. And interestingly, more than 2/3 of Americans now see that longevity is their number one health concern and priority. So it's not about one specific health goal. It's really about how long am I going to live? And if you're going to live long, wouldn't it be great to live well while you're living long, right? So as we know, as we age, our bodies degrade. It gets tougher and tougher for them to operate and remove toxins and do all sorts of functions that we took for granted in our teens and 20s, right? Now that we've looked at longevity as being an issue for so many people in the United States, they're putting things in their body that contradict that goal. So many people, I think, go through the health food store and think that protein powders are just safe by default. But they come from many different sources and many different manufacturers who have a vast array of quality control, if any, standards in the development and the production of their product. So I consider myself a nutrition professional, but I'm also a consumer. So knowing what clean means in this industry is extremely important for me to build trust with my clientele and actually offer them long-term health benefits without any hidden surprises that might be in a particular product. So I think when we looked at the Clean Label Project study, I also wanted to do my own due diligence and make sure that this isn't just a handful of hippies just writing stuff and throwing it in the headlines to create a bunch of stir, right? We have to trust our information and we have to double check our information now more than ever with the advent of AI and all the crazy political stuff that's going around all the time. Checking your information is critical. So I looked into the Clean Label Project, and they are on, like it says here, a mission to reveal what labels don't show, empowering you to feel more confident in the products that you use daily. So when we look at our traditional food standards in the United States, they are weak. There are loopholes and there are cracks that things fall through all the time. The other environmental group that I want you to be aware of is the EWG, which I talked about a few weeks ago in the context of personal care products and the contaminants that are contained therein. The EWG also looks at food supplements and other things in the home. But when you look at the Clean Label Project and what they've done specifically, if you go to their site, you will see that they've done this protein powder study, but they've also done snack and nutrition bars, coffee, pediatric over-the-counter drugs, infant formula. There's a bunch of different stuff there. So they are doing a very good job, and they are quite an upcoming force in the demand for accountability. Same with the EWG. So if you see the EWG stamp on a product, you know that you know that you know that you can trust that all the ingredients have been compared and scrutinized by a body that is nothing but passionate about this without um, the motivation of profit. These are nonprofit groups doing this. All right. When we talk about, well, who you can trust and the EWG in the context of that, I had an opportunity to look at what they do test for and look for in products on the market. And their small font list goes on for about 750 pages. And if it contains any one of those, your product is flagged and you do not deserve the stamp. So that's why that's so valuable. So let's talk a little bit about this Clean Label Project study. What did it do? It looked at and tested 160 products from 70 different brands in the United States, which is approximately 83% of the entire US market for protein drinks and powders. So this is a substantial section of that economy that's been kind of looked at under the magnifying glass. They conducted over 35,000, almost 36,000 individual tests for all kinds of industrial and environmental contaminants, such as all the heavy metals, lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury, and some of the man-made chemicals that have made their way into our food supply, bisphenols, BPA, BPS, on every single one of those protein powders. Then they employed some advanced analytical methods. So this is the ICP-MS and the LC-MS-MS. You're like, what the heck is that? Well, I didn't know until I looked it up. So uh, inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry. Highly sensitive tests that conduct even a few parts per billion of heavy metals like lead and arsenic in these products. And then we're looking at the bisphenol A, BPS, and pesticides residues. They use this liquid chromatography with tandem mass spectrometry. So very scientific stuff going on here to make sure that this is the gold standard of the industry for testing, that they're not going to just put it in a test tube, swirl around, and if it changes a color, oh, there might be something present or of a concern. This is a legitimate and credible analytical review of these products. Then last, the products that they did include as far as protein powders went, they looked at whey-based protein, plant-based proteins like the pea, rice, and soy that you'll see in many of the alternative products for protein, plant-based only. And they also looked at the difference between organic and conventional derivatives for the raw material. And they also looked at different flavors to see if there was a difference between the two. So let's show you what happened. So here are the headline findings. 47% of all products tested exceeded at least one federal or state safety threshold, including California Prop 65, as we've all heard of that one before. 47%. That's almost half of 80+% of the entire US market is tainted. To a degree, it's above a federal or state safety threshold. And we know when the feds or the states put a safety threshold on something, it's a problem, right? You don't want to be anywhere near that threshold, right? 21% of samples exceeded 2 times California Prop 65 levels. So half of the half, right? Among plant-based protein powders, 77% tested for lead positively. Among the organic powders, interestingly, 79%. So that's that's kind of that blew me away, actually. That just the regular run-of-the-mill protein powders versus the organic ones tested higher. We're going to talk a little bit about that, why that is, and why we need to be careful as consumers when we're just looking at labels. And this was interesting to me. Chocolate flavored powders had significantly higher lead and cadmium versus the vanilla flavor. So if you're a huge chocolate fan, let's talk about that later here too. So let's talk about, let's have a little dive into the heavy metals on the periodic table, right? These are the areas on the periodic table where these things reside. So we all know now that lead, there is no safe level that you can have in your body. It's linked to brain development in children and also brain performance in adults. Organic powders showed an average of 3 times more lead and 2 times more cadmium than non-organic powders. Plant-based powders had up to 3 times more lead than whey-based powders. Cadmium, heavy metal, used in all kinds of things. They use it for the absorption rods in nuclear facilities. They use it for a coating for like, bolts and automotive parts and aircraft parts. So this is kind of a heavy duty kind of industrial metal, and showed up 5 times more in plant-based powders than whey-based powders. Chocolate flavor has a significantly elevated risk, 4 times roughly, and 110 times cadmium compared to vanilla. So we're going to talk about why these things might have triggered the chart there and moved the needle so far. All this information, by the way, this is not a risk assessment, right? This is going to say, well, when you have this much in your body, you're going to develop this cancer or whatever it might be. The causality of it, we're not talking about that. We're simply talking about the actual presence that has been tested for in these products on the market. You can draw your own conclusions and do your own research, but I guarantee you, if you're eating lead, you're going to have a problem. Now, here, I'll pause for just a moment. So you're back into the store and you're looking at the 2 protein powders right next to each other. One is $1 cheaper. Let's say the consumer decides to pick up the one that's $1 cheaper. Both of the labels of the competitive products were the same. And we know now that we had a 50% chance that one of them was going to have a contaminant, lead, cadmium, arsenic, whatever it may be, higher than any state or federal standard allows. Yet it's not on the product label. If you scroll down the product label and it says cadmium and it says lead and it says arsenic and mercury, do you think anybody would buy it? Of course not. So why don't they put it on the label? Well, there's really 2 main reasons. Number one, the companies that purchase the raw materials to make the end product aren't doing the testing, and they don't know. because they never did the testing. It's expensive. It's time consuming. There's a whole lot of infrastructure you have to have in place in order to do this type of testing. Most companies do not, and it's not required here in the United States. The other reason is they have done the testing and it's still in the product, and they decided to go ahead and produce that product even though they knew it was in there, and they sold it to you and the American public anyway. Why? Because it's also legal in the United States to do that. So think about those things. I have to insert, it would be irresponsible of me tonight to not throw this in here about picking your brand carefully when it comes to any kind of supplementation, tonight specifically protein supplementation. So what is the Beyond Organic standard that Shaklee has? It's our philosophy to go not just to get organic raw materials, to make sure that the purity and the potency of those raw materials are checked after the harvest before they go into production, to guarantee that it's free of not just lead, not just cadmium, not just arsenic, not just mercury, not BPAs, over 350 ingredient tests on every single botanical in a Shaklee product. So why do we do this? It's the right thing to do. Does it make your product more expensive? Yes, sometimes. But here's what I'll tell people. You may be able to beat me on price, but you will never beat me on quality. Ever, ever, ever. We have this as the gold standard. So you have to know your company before you purchase the product. Before you lay your money on the cash register table, you've got to know the company that you're purchasing it from. Do you trust them? If you don't know anything about them, my advice is run and give a Shaklee master a call. So this is 3 times the standard of the UMS Pharmacopoeia. 350 contaminants, pesticides, impurities, heavy metals, all that stuff. And when you conduct all this over a year's time at Shaklee, you're well over 100,000 quality tests per year to ensure that our products are safe, they are pure, they are potent when they hit the marketplace. Had to say that. All right, so what does this mean for consumers, and what does it mean for professionals like myself in the health industry? We'll talk with the consumers first. For consumers, this is a recap here. A healthy or organic label does not guarantee that your product is going to be contaminant free. If it says all natural, it absolutely is not going to guarantee a contaminant free product. Plant-based and chocolate-flavored powders show higher levels of contamination. So why is this? I have to hypothesize here. So you can check my references at the end, but when plants are grown in areas that are used for farming, they are exposed to chemicals, pesticides, and there's a prevalence of just natural occurring lead, cadmium, mercury, those types of things in the soil. They're just there. And the plants go down deep in roots and pull those into the plant. I do know that, just an example, our alfalfa that Shaklee produces, those roots from the alfalfa plant go down sometimes 200, 300, 400 feet down in the ground. And it's very difficult to find a lead-free alfalfa raw material source. So these plants have the ability to pull all kinds of things out of the soil. So plant-based proteins are likely going to have more contamination than whey-based proteins. Why? Whey is milk. Typically cow's milk is what is manufactured from. From the production of cheese, the liquid that's left over is the whey protein, and that is dried and turned into a powder and sent to the marketplace. These animals have the ability to absorb a lot of those contaminants before they produce milk. Again, hypothesizing here, but this is probably what is going on with the contaminant loads in plant-based protein versus whey-based protein. And when you look at chocolate, you look at where chocolate is grown primarily, a lot of these countries do not have the regulations for pesticides and herbicides that we do here in the United States, even though we're more lax than, say, like Europe. Chocolate is a contaminated raw material or crop. So whey-based protein powders from reputable suppliers tended to be cleaner. So again, we went over that. Um, you have to know your company, right? If they're not willing to give information to you about how they produce their products that share clinical data, if that share quality control standards, if they don't share any of that information to you, that's that's kind of your answer. It's contaminated. If they want to share it with you and it's contaminated, you're not going to buy it. So if you think of the logic through there, your company has to be transparent with this stuff in order to get a quality product. So look for that stuff. So as a nutrition professional, we need to use these findings from the clean label study to help educate our clients or customers about why don't you buy the stuff straight off the shelf at any old store? What should you be looking out for? What kind of due diligence do you need to do in order to find a clean source? And if we have a clean source, such as here at Shackley, we can add value beyond measure to these people who are looking for a clean source and have longevity on their minds, right? We want to emphasize that our company, once again, has put the infrastructure in place, is doing the testing. We're testing it when it comes off the fields. We're testing it before it goes into the manufacturing process. We test it during the manufacturing process. And then we test it again right before it goes onto the shelves to be distributed to our customers. It's from start to finish, always tested. We minimize any kind of, well, we don't use any additives, colors, or flavor, any kind of stuff like that that's chemical in nature. And we have the testing to back it up, as well as the clinical study. So if your company can't do that, then come over to the Shackley House so we can take care of you. Your awareness of the contamination risk sets you apart as a trusted health professional. So again, this is being recorded so that you can take a look at this. This is my list of research, my references, and I wanted to open it up to the rest of everybody here, especially some of the independent Shackley ambassadors who are on the call. I have been using Shackley protein powders for 23 years now, 22 years, somewhere around there. And thank goodness I have, because back when I was introduced to the protein, it was simply a health issue for me. It was said to be healthier. It's going to do you some good, right? That's why I took it. And then later I find out that there's this huge contamination issue going on. Well, thank goodness I've been loyal to this brand that has been clean all these years. Some of you have been using protein far longer than that. And chime in if you want.
Well, Scott, we've been eating that stuff for 51 years.
Wow. Every day.
It's incredible.
Sheila, did you
Yeah.
want to comment, Sheila?
I was just saying how mind-boggling this is all, and I talk to my son a lot about what he uses and what he tells his associates about why they should use our product, and so many of them they're just I just can't imagine how they're so nonchalant about it, and when it comes to price comparison. And I just try to emphasize to him, well, you have to get it through their heads that quality and ingredients make a huge difference, especially down the road. So we've just got a lot of educating to do, and it's a
That
challenge.
we do. And I'm hoping that this webinar tonight is a tool. Now that's recorded, you can certainly request this and
Yes.
share it with somebody confidently that the research has been done, the facts and figures are accurate, and I have my own opinions, of course, which I have fully put out here tonight. But that the information is here, it's important, and more than ever, obviously, if half the products out there contain a contaminant that could build up in your body or cause a problem later. Why would you buy that? Why would you buy that?
It's better just not to do anything as opposed to contaminate yourself,
Absolutely.
I
Um,
think.
If there's more interest in what we just spoke about tonight, in 2 weeks, we're going to be going over all of Shaklee's protein sources, what we have, how they're different, how they perform differently, some of the formulations, so you can kind of get a full gamut or menu of the protein choices that Shaklee has. We have a lot of different proteins. Very excited to talk about our sparkling protein. It's the first ever and the highest quality clear protein drink. It's a fizzy drink that is almost clear. It's bizarre. It's all whey based and produced out of Europe under European standards. So super excited about talking about this product. We're going to be talking that in 2 weeks, Monday night. All right. Is there
Sounds
any
good.
other questions?